How you doing? How you doing? And how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Patty, and I appreciate you stopping by today. It's Christmas Eve. I know. Happy holidays to everybody. If you don't celebrate Christmas, happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you doing, boo. I love you. I hope you're spending time with your family, and I hope everybody's good. We're here to talk about something today that ain't good. And it's not that I pulled Kaching, because I don't have the resources to build her. It's going to be like 2 weeks before we actually get to play her, and it hurts my soul. But I'm baiting you right now. I'm baiting you so hard because we're not looking at gameplay today. We looking at graphs, boo. Now is this actually? Yeah, no, we're sized incorrectly. All right, so we're gonna talk about some problems today because Genshin Impact is in serious trouble and it's not getting a lot of attention. I'm guessing in the next 2 weeks or so we'll start seeing, websites posting stories along this line and everything. I'm not saying I'm breaking the news, but I'm surprised I haven't heard any rumblings about this yet, at least to a serious nature. Keep somewhat of an eye on other content creators to see what kind of stuff they're talking about and everything. And I haven't really seen anybody kind of dig into this and kind of get serious about it. So that's what we're here to do today. I spent most of yesterday trying to put together a lot of this information for us to go over and talk about and kind of outline how we're going to do this. So we're looking at my buddy Google here, specifically Google Trends. If you don't know anything about Google Trends, real important thing to make very clear right now is this chart that you see that's going up to 100 behind me. This doesn't mean like, okay, 100 million search results right there, 34 million search results right there. It's not how Google works, not how Google Trends works. Essentially, and this gives you a pretty good description, this is all based off of like the most popular point for a game, and then they kind of set the values and everything off of it based from there. So it's not a popularity counter or anything like that. It's kind of just giving you a measurement on something on how its search health is doing is a good way to phrase it. And we can use this as a pretty good sample to talk about a few things and to make a couple of educated guesses and everything. So before we dig deep into all of this and start going through all my tabs, this is largely speculative on my part. This is just my opinion and me trying to share it in the best way that I can. It is not 100% truth, but this is something that I've seen, and I know a lot of other content creators are feeling this right now. I know I was getting, 1,000 to 3,000 views on videos. Now we're, down quite a bit. Good ones are almost hitting 1K, and then the rest of the parties between like 2 and 500, which is cool. It happens, but it makes a little bit more sense when you look at some of these numbers and everything like that. And you can probably tell there's a few other content creators out there that look like they're doing a little rough right now. And I sincerely hope y'all get through those rough patches and are doing okay. There's at least one that I'm legitimately worried about, but we're not going to name drop or anything like that. Just make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves. That's the most important thing. But let's take a look at things real quick. And actually, I want to take you guys to a full year back and give you a little bit of a history lesson. So I can't really show it in full detail, but we can show a meme version of it and everything. So I applied to the content creator program. The first thing is my email in, and the second is the one coming back that obviously says, please disclose the contents of this email. And it means like the entirety in its full and its language and everything. When I was in the content creator program, which I no longer am, it was made clear that we could talk about those. We just couldn't show them exactly. So like this is the brief summary from when I'm just looking at all the email in my mailbox and not going into the actual messages themselves. But Friday, June 5th is when I, more or less became aware of the game and applied into it. That's all the way back where you at. Okay, it's just before this dot, all right? And in the mobile community, Genshin Impact was known. So it's crazy for me to just personally see how low the bar is in terms of how much traffic it was getting. But obviously, this is in context with its highest peak at 100. So we don't really know how many hits it was getting in these earlier days and everything like that. But I just wanted to show you guys where I came into the picture with Genshin, because it's been a really, 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 really wild ride to watch everything that's happened, all their success, everything that's been tied with it. It's been super cool. When I was in the content creator program, it felt like I was part of something historic happening. You know what I mean? Like it was cool. It was cool. This game blew up almost like no other game has, especially a Chinese game. It just was absolutely insane. So game came out and pretty quickly just absolutely skyrocketed. Like just shoop. If you go through Google Trends, you will find, you know, more steep ascents, but it was one of the most successful video game launches of all time and the most successful Chinese game launch ever, period. 100%. We need to give them the respect for that because that is something they pulled off, and that's impressive. But things kind of took a turn. So these graphs are a kind of good metric for a game's health, so to speak, and how it's doing. Is it gaining popularity? Is it losing popularity? And we've got a few other ones to look at real fast, just to give you a quick example, and then we're going to hop back to this. So this is Raid Shadow Legends, Petty's favorite game of all time. We could make a week-long video of me just cursing out this game and all the terrible decisions they make and the fact that they 100% should be investigated for fraud, but we'll get into that on another video. We've already done it twice. But this is pretty typical for a mobile game, like this kind of up and down, kind of coasting around in the middle. This is where they're happiest, because most mobile games focus the heaviest on new player, not even retention, just new player acquisition, let's call it. That is a huge focus for Raid. That's why we all know them as a meme for all the advertisements they do. It's the most ambitious RPG of 2019. It's a meme, okay? But through the way that they kind of push their content out, the way that they really, really try to rope new people in, it's how a lot of mobile games will look when you look at them on Google Trends. If we take a look at AFK Arena, it is very similar. Obviously, Raid Shadow Legends is, you know, a little bit more towards the middle and a little bit more towards staying in the middle than AFK Arena is. But again, we get this kind of nice even curve, you know what I mean? If we look at Summoner's War, same deal. It is all over the place, but it's got a consistency to it. Where it's starting and then where it's ending aren't on that different planes, you know what I mean? But with our boy Genshin, we're starting up here. And we drop really, really far down to here kind of fast. And let's take a look at a couple of things real quick. You might be a very astute person and notice that we've got a bump in the middle of this video. What's that bump? Oh, November 11th. You know what happened on November 11th, right? That was patch 1.1. So 3 days before patch 1.1 went live, you could already see the uptick in how they were doing and how they were being searched more and more with the coming patch coming. And that's great. That's great. It only peaked at 42 for 1.1. But hey, that wasn't a major content patch like what we just got. It was the filler patch. It was the patch that has the event into it. And it was a great event. Like, by all accounts, like, a solid job on that event, bro. We're not here to bash that whatsoever. But let's get into the slightly worrying stuff, because as we progress, we kind of just slowly keep seeing this ship sinking. And we got patch 1.2, and we're not getting a spike. Now, this isn't the main focus for the whole video, but that's a major red flag. This was the big patch. This was the meteor of the first two. And, you know, right now, or sorry, for, you know, 22nd, we're at 25. And we were at 42 on launch day before. So that's a problem. That can tell us a couple of things right there. A, that this patch wasn't enough to bring some people back. That's worrying. Two, that there wasn't really all that much hype for this patch in the first place. Even for engaged players, people who are active in the game, leading up to these patches, you expect those players to be searching things, to be looking for information, and for that activity to reflect in Google. But that's not what we see happening. That's not good. Especially with this being a patch that was supposed to have some meat on it. So, again, I'm just trying to point out that red flag there. We'll kind of surmise things a little bit more here in a second, but you might be thinking to yourself, like, well, okay, Petty, this game just launched. It's barely even 90 days old. Look at, you know, where the start is. Like, it's really, really new. All right, that's fair. And the other three games that we just took a look at have all been around for at least 1 to many more years. Summoner's Wars can a grandpa in mobile games at this point. Like, it's old. But let's look at a game that came out the same month, September 2020. Here we have Hades. Do you notice anything about Hades trend? It was doing really, really good at launch, and then it stayed so very consistent and well above the 50% median line. Even once it gets to its lowest point, it is still, for the most part, staying above that line, even though we're getting drops beneath it. It was a game that was nominated several times with recent Game Awards. It's also a game that is hugely popular on Twitch right now. These are all things that, you know, could offset the data that we're seeing and mean that it doesn't correlate in the worrying way that, you know, we possibly could for Genshin. But, you know, Genshin had the meteoric, you know, start and everything. So Hades did good at start, and they've done good since then. But which game is healthier? Probably gonna say Hades, bro. Probably gonna side with Hades. Let's take a look at another game real fast. What else came out September 2020 that we can kind of compare it to using Google Trends? Oh, Spellbreak! I forgot about that one. You did too. Everyone tried that for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and she gone. And I mean, that's a little over the top. It had a decent health to it for longer than that, and it is trying to make some moves now. But this is what a fizzle looks like. This is what a hard fizzle looks like. And Spellbreak wasn't a bad game. I thought of something very different when I heard, like, you know, RPG, fantasy, battle royale than what it ended up being. And it could be a mix of that for players, or it having, you know, low replayability for some people. There's a lot of things that can go into, you know, what potentially feeds into a big drop-off like this, right? But we can at least take a look at this and be like, okay, so this is what an unhealthy game looks like. I'm sure the people at Spellbreak aren't like, oh, we did it, guys. We've made it. Like, this is our Oprah. We're done. We never have to work again. They're looking at the drawing board right now, seeing what stuff they can work on, what things they can improve, and mistakes that they made. And that is a key thing to do in this situation. It is the most important thing to do. And what I worry about with Genshin and our big old jump here is that they were so successful at the beginning that they, mix between, patting themselves on the back too hard or celebrating too hard. They might not be paying as close attention to how much damage the game has really suffered since launch and where it's at right now. Like it made a crazy amount of money, but if, that money dries up and stops, the company's going to have a hard time making more content, keeping all of these promises. It's still a successful game. I don't want to try to say that it's not or seem like I'm trying to just rain down some haterade. Genshin Impact has some fundamental problems, and it's obviously lost a huge player base. And there should be a conversation as to why. There should be alarm bells that this is happening in the first place, and I'm surprised that I don't see that throughout the community. I think some people by now have noticed the drop in, posts on the internet, posts on Reddit. We're at a quarter, and we've been at a quarter of the game's success for a while. For a third of the time that the game's been out, it's been basically just sitting at 25%. That's pretty bad. That's concerning, to say the very least. That means most people that played the game, and there's enough evidence here to say that, they gave it a good shot. We ain't talking about Spellbreak here, where it just looks like a single mountain or one of the blips on an EKG machine. It had some work to it. It was doing very well for a while. And I think there's several systems in the games and design choices that have ultimately led us to having a quarter of the population still playing these games from where we started. So hopefully I've laid all of that out for you guys in such a way that you can see where my train of thought is and where we're coming from. Now I want to get into a little bit of what I think they can change, what things I think, were the cause of this happening. But I just want to get a nice baseline and establish that, hey, this is a thing, and we should be aware of it, and MiHoYo should be aware of it, and we should talk about it a little bit and try to understand what's going on. So, for some of the newer people that might not have been around a whole lot in the early game community in the first month or so, the resin system was a bit of an issue. People lost their minds over it. And even those of us that weren't completely enraged by it and just spewing venom, we still knew it was a bad system and that there was multiple things that they could do to fix it. But one of the issues that I think is why we're seeing this huge drop-off is that things to mitigate issues or changes to the game are only coming in basically windows of every 6 weeks when they're dropping those patches. Guys, if you come up with a good solution to something that is infecting the entire player base, hotfix it. Hotfix it as soon as you feel safe that it's going to deploy and be okay and isn't going to cause a million other problems. If you have to sit on that 6-week time period every time to institute a change that can better the health of your game, you're going to see this keep happening. People aren't going to wait a month and a half for something that bothers them about something they really enjoy and not walk away. The chances of that happening are so high. You get frustrated because you really like the game, you really like playing, and problems don't get fixed for a while at a time. You're gonna lose players. Do I think that's the main issue that drove people away? No, I think it's a combination of things. So, resin system, right off the bat, is one of the bigger ones, for sure. We did another video where we talked about some of the ideas that we had for how they could, increase the resin cap, going off of like every 5 to 10 adventure rank levels. Something that will make you feel like as a player that system is deepening, that you're getting more rewards out of it, and you're not just stuck at that static, 160 forever. We were at 120 before, and that was absolutely awful, but the 160 is still bad. You either have to rapidly increase the recharge time on it, or you need to build the system out more so that it feels more rewarding, so that people aren't getting as frustrated with it. If you can give them light at the end of the tunnel, like, okay, I just need to get 5 more AR levels, and my energy life is going to be much, much better. And then, if that system continues to go, then there's multiple lights in the tunnel. And that's how a lot of these other games that you see with better retention, keep their people playing. Next couple of things that I think are pretty easy but also a little bit tough to resolve are going to be things like the constellation system. So for your average free-to-play person, getting a 5-star, that's basically it. You can, maybe think one day, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now, I'll get a second constellation. But it's not a great system. After you level your character up, after you've mostly leveled their weapon up, and you've got good enough artifacts on them, where are they going? What are they doing? Where's the progression? I feel like it would be a much better way, much better system in terms of constellation to be something that you can eventually unlock the next rank of. My suggestion would be to take world experience from killing monsters and stuff and have that feed into unlocking your next constellation. It's already useless because no one can use it to actually level their champions to begin with, and it does matter how long it takes to be able to unlock that constellation. Like, if you just make it to where it's 4 months of grinding, no one's going to be happy with that system. But if you make it so that it is possible to get those over time, and there is a long-term progression for your character that is not based around RNG, you're gonna have better player retention. It's it's a thing. You can keep pumping out characters and keep trying to get people excited for banners. You're going to long-term lose players. People are going to eventually get wise to that and, not want to be part of that system anymore because, yay, now they have 6 5-stars with no constellations. It's... that would then take the issue of it feeling like your character never really progresses outside of extremely lucky RNG, and just making that problem 5 times worse now because you have 5 of those characters that you're never going to be able to build up outside of super RNG pools. So just a suggestion, might be a good place to start. And then this kind of ties back into the resin system. But people should not feel so gated in being able to do things, whether it be grinding ascension materials, grinding talent materials, grinding gear. You can potentially make that impact a little bit less by making adjustments to the resin system and making that feel more rewarding, making that feel like it has its own real progression to it. Honestly, though, to get people back, to win some love in the hearts of people, I would make some tough choices there and basically decide one of those things doesn't cost resin anymore at all. Whether it be the Ascension dungeons, whether it be the talent dungeons, whether it be the gear dungeons. Don't expect you to give us that last one for free, but you should probably think about giving one of those other 2 up for free. And then counting on people using things like ley lines to try and burn some of that other extra resin if you're worried about people not spending it. But you want people to feel like they are free, like they have choice, like they can do anything in the game to be able to work on themselves and progress. Once people feel locked in to having to do this, to having to do that, it is going to kill the enjoyability for a decent percentage of players. A lot of the people probably watching this video don't mind. We're the ones still playing the game, guys. A lot of the things we're talking about here, we probably all agree on some level that, you know, there's some problems and they can make some changes. But we're obviously not the ones so bothered by it that we would stop playing the game completely. So if your natural reaction to all this was, well, I don't care that much. Yeah, no, you wouldn't be the ones that do. The people that quit did, but we need some of them. So we need to have this talk. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. But, you know, you want people to enjoy your game. Locking them into having to do this or having to spend this is going to retract from that every time. Doesn't matter how well those systems are developed, they're going to have an impact. So you have to make the judgment call of where that impact is going to be the least. Ideally, it would be in an area where it feels, you know, more rewarding than some of the others, or it might be lucrative enough that players are willing to put up with some of the stresses of that system to be able to get the rewards out of them. If you just have them everywhere, people feel like they're just running into roadblocks all the time, or that they're, you know, being shooed into doing a certain thing. It's no one wants to feel like they're being driven like they're cattle. You know what I mean? So giving them some more freedom, giving them some more things that make them feel like they're building and doing something, a lot of that stuff's going to go a long way towards preventing big drops like this. Because if this gets too bad, it's going to seriously harm the game. It's going to lose a lot of creators because people think there are not as many clicks. There's probably a lot of creators you guys subscribe to. This channel's done it too, to where we've started doing videos on other stuff too, because Genshin just ain't popping like she was. Now, granted, I was on the train way before it was ever popping, you know, and I do love the game, so I feel like an obligation to, you know, still stick with it and try and give it my best. And part of what I feel like is my best is giving my perspective on stuff like this. Also, one last thing, and this is just something that I personally really want in the game. But this would fall under the category of something super creative, super fun, and also just super silly. I want a Moba mode. This is the perfect game design for it. We should have a Moba mode. That would be amazing. That would be better than real PvP. That would be way better than real PvP. The way all of the character skills work and everything, they would all fit super nice into a MOBA. And it's not hard to make 3 lanes and a couple of towers and buildings. We've already got the monster units. You can have interesting waves with those. You could do specialty ones where it's only this type or only this type. Like there's a lot that you can do there, and you'd be one of the first like 3D MOBAs. Like I would love to play a first-person MOBA where I could also like run, climb up the wall, and jump out of my lane into, you know, the jungle, or jump out of the jungle from my lane on top of somebody because I can climb on walls. That would be amazing. And these characters are super fun, super interesting, and I would love to take them into a MOBA and murder strangers. That sounds like a great time. Doing something like that or along those veins where it's, you know, kind of a silly, fun thing that isn't a just for an event deal. Don't you guys give that to us in an event and take it away and expect us to be appreciative. You give it to us and we get to keep it. But doing something like that, I think, would be really good for the game. And I think it's very achievable without having to, you know, recreate the wheel. A lot of the resources they already have made for the, you know, real game, and basically just have to put a map together for that. So that's Patty's 2 cents. I'm sorry I went on a Christmas Eve rant about some issues, but, you know, this stuff has been in my head for a little bit, so I figured it'd be cool to kind of try and lay it all out and just see what happens. But thank you guys so much for stopping by. please enjoy the holidays. I love you guys so very much. We're still going to do videos today and tomorrow, so no Christmas break. Our channel's almost a year old. I started it the day after Christmas last year, as I was broke and it was the only Christmas present I could give myself. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. So I'm actually super hype about it being almost a full year on YouTube. So yeah, you're going to see my face again tomorrow. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. You're going to have to catch your boy in the next one because we're out of here. Deuces.